Yes, it is the discussion segment of New Dawn this morning, and we are discussing something that is germane to nation building, and that is patriotism. Everyone needs to be hopeful, everyone needs to be positive and patriotic for any nation to move to where it is, to where it's supposed to be. And that is why we are going to be discussing national rebirth and social reform. No other person would do that effectively than the Director General of the National Orientation Agency, Malam Lanre Issa-Onilu. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Nice to have you on OGTV New Dawn this morning.
Yeah, nice being here. It's my pleasure.
All right, Simiat.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. This particular topic, Nigerians have been optimistic. There are different reactions when you got appointed as the, the Director General of NOA. And of course, we've been seeing different policy directions, policy documents, and of course we've been seeing, some things with respect to changing the narratives of Nigeria within and outside the country. So presently we are looking at this particular topic because we know that a lot of things still need to be done. I want you to tell us precisely how has the narrative being before you took over, and now that you're taking over, what are you feeling about this, rebirth and of course social reforms that Nigeria is currently going through?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, we are all aware of the main issue in this country, which to me is lack of unity and national cohesion, and every other thing is just symptom of that. Whether we talk of crime, whether we talk of lack of development, whether we talk of lack of progress, everything else is a symptom of a country where the citizens do not have any reason to love their country and to work for their country. So when I came here, the mandate of NOA, suggests that that is supposed to be our responsibility. But before I came here, not much was going on, not because the agency was not ready to work, but because the successive government had not paid due attention.
All right, I think we have a little challenge there.
With the network. But of course it goes beyond, I think I was having a conversation with someone, okay, there was a platform, Nigerians now in abroad, and they were talking about America, and the next thing the man just said, God bless America, and I'm like, when are we going to start saying God bless Nigeria?
When we get to that with Malam at the end of affairs, because the patriotism is everybody's business. Everyone has to literally, let me use our local parlance, carry the matter on our head.
Exactly. You talked about unity, which is critical. If we are united, it means that we are facing whatever challenges we are confronted with in one voice, and of course with one voice, and it's easier to destroy, the enemies that come whether within or from outside the country. But it is this same issue of like patriotism, like you said. You go on social media, you hear Nigerians say a lot of things, and I give it to the president each time he comes to say, do not curse your country. Even if the country is going through a lot, we still are Nigerians, and if you still bear that name, that responsibility.
I have that passport.
Exactly. I have the passport to do whatever outside. Even when you go outside, you still carry the passport. It means that in one way or the other, you have a duty to the country, whichever way it is.
One thing I really want the DG to speak about is to differentiate between demarketing your country and trying to tell the true story, because these are the things that even those in our own profession need to understand that, okay, at this point, this is the point where you get to, and you are no more practicing the profession. You are now demarketing
the country.
And it's unfortunately it's a profession where, you know, everybody with social media, everybody is now a publisher.
Exactly.
If you have a Twitter page, a TikTok handle, you can
say whatever you like. The mic belongs to everybody now.
And everybody has a microphone.
Yes, I like the fact that you said there should be clear-cut definition of what it means to, where do you draw the boundary?
Yes.
But of course, it's also a tough one on the political elite of the country to get to know that whatever it is they do have implications. Whether you want people to talk about it, they are realities of our time. And that's why some will say that, oh, you cannot always refer to everything as being that you're demarketing the country. But of course, if there are certain things that the leaders are supposed to be doing and they are not doing it, it comes with consequences when they are not doing those things. You can imagine the issue of insecurity. How much of pampering can you give the discussion when, of course, every day people are dying?
You can't pamper that.
Do you get that?
You can't massage that.
Do you understand? So at the end of the day, we have these responsibilities that I think everybody just needs to be on top of their games. That is the only way we can have you know, what looks a little bit of what we are clamoring to have as a nation, and of course how we want others to respect us in terms of how the world sees Nigeria.
More importantly, I think the job of NOA is well cut out. There is a huge gap between the led...
Okay, I think we have him back.
Okay. All right, Madam, nice to have you back, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
The network was kind of, but I would like to, let's jump into it because our time is fast running. Under your leadership, you launched the National Value Charter. Now, can you please school us on what you intend to achieve, school the public on what you intend to achieve with this National Value Charter and how far has it gone in achieving its purpose?
Okay, thank you. See, the basic issue, as I was talking about, is about the fact that Nigerians are not committed to Nigeria. And it's because we do not have shared identity. If you are a Yoruba man, you have your identity if you are Igbo man, but as Nigerians, we do not have shared identity. So we need to redefine who a Nigerian is, and for us to know what are the expectations that we have of ourselves as citizens of this country. So the National Value Charter is targeted at actually addressing this matter. It's a charter. It's a charter between the government and the citizens, you know, between the country and the citizens, which means that we have an agreement of who we are supposed to be, whether we are in the leadership or we are in the followership. So the charter has been put in place about 2 years ago, and it addresses many of the fundamental issues that are bedeviling this country in terms of the impediments to unity, the hurdles we have, you know, for us to have national cohesion in this country. So we've done that. We took it to the Federal Executive Council last year. The requests were approved, all our requests were approved, and then so we started the implementation. And under the National Value Charter, the basic idea is to define who a Nigerian is and the attributes that a Nigerian must have for him to be able to say he's truly a Nigerian. So in this case, the president is to unveil the charter. It has, you know, we've been having dates being shifted, you know, for one reason or the other, but eventually we will get there. And after it's the unveiling, then the implementation will go full blast. So as we speak, we've commenced implementing some of the aspects of it. One of it is that there must be civic education for Nigerians in school, for them to learn what it means to be a Nigerian, so that everybody can have such attributes, you know, that qualifies you to be a citizen. And then we must know our place in the country and our responsibility and rights. So September this year, the Federal Ministry of Education announced a new subject that has been introduced into the school curriculum, which is heritage and citizenship studies. That was recommended to FED. So now it is compulsory subject in primary school and secondary school in Nigeria for you to learn about your country, for you to learn about the identity, for you to learn about civic, responsibilities of citizens, so that you can grow up as a conscious Nigerian who understands what it means to be a Nigerian and understand his role in it. So that is one of the 7 institutions that we identified that should be created to ensure that Nigerians are nurtured of values. Value orientation is very key. In a country where you don't have value system, you have the kind of problem that we have. People will be psychologically disconnected from the country, and they are not going to, lift a finger, no matter how bad things are. So that is the order we are trying to cross. So of the 7 institutions, about 2 or 3 are being implemented now. Just last week, we inaugurated the committee, the joint committee between the Nigeria Broadcasting Commission and NOA to work on how to infuse cartoon, local cartoon about our values, not the foreign cartoons that our children are watching now. So to infuse local cartoons about our values, so that our children can grow up understanding who they are, seeing the people they know, knowing the kind of tradition and culture of Nigeria and the various tribes, so that we begin to appreciate ourselves better than we do now. So that was done. A couple of weeks ago as well, we inaugurated a joint committee of the Nigerian University Commission and NOA as well to work on infusing that as a subject matter in the university curriculum, the general study course in the university, so that you can learn university. The same thing is being done for polytechnic and colleges of education. So you cannot go to Nigerian school now without learning what it means to be a Nigerian. So, and that is just one of the 7 institutions. The other one, like I said, is to nationalize the cartoon content, to ensure that our children stop watching foreign cartoons that contain a lot of foreign values that are at variance with our own national values.
Okay, you earlier talked about unity of Nigeria, and of course one of the reasons that was given recently when the national anthem was changed, the old one now we have the Nigeria We Hail Thee, was largely because that is also needed to share. If we have shared identity, maybe that is going to give us better result at the end of the day. So can you tell us precisely whether that has really had an impact in the way Nigerians see themselves, or the way we see ourselves now with the new returning the old anthem of Nigeria We Hail Thee?
Yes, you are correct to say that the old, now new national anthem actually resonates, better, with our situation in this country, and it says the truth about us, and also give us the kind of counseling that we require to forge a better citizenship. So, how far have we gone? Yes, these are intangible, difficult to measure, but you can be certain that part of the curriculum that we have in school is to also ensure that people do not just recite the anthem. They don't just sing it. And that in schools, they are taking through the real meaning of each line of the anthem. So this is going to be part of what we have in the schools now, for people to understand what it means. That not just another national anthem to learn and to recite or sing. It is actually for us to understand the meaning and to ensure that it reflects what we do. If you look critically at the line, take the first stanza, for instance, Nigeria We Hail Thee, our dear native land. That is a statement of endearment. And then you have no tribes and tongues may differ. It's an acknowledgement of our diversity. In brotherhood we start. So he says, despite our diversity, we start in brotherhood. So the essence is to ensure that we take this to school, to ensure that our children understand the deeper meanings, of these things. And over the years, we begin to see citizens that are more conscious of the diversity and take the full advantage of the benefit rather than, the disadvantages of diversity. So that is what that is all about. So the first thing is to learn it, but the second thing is to ensure that the real meaning, the deeper meaning, is exposed, children are exposed to those, and ensure that they learn those and live by that. And it's part of what we call the citizen codes, the codes of conduct.
Okay, you also talked about the fact that Nigerians feel a little bit disconnected. That's why most of these challenges that we're confronted with are really lingering. But of course, how much of engagement do you have with political leaders of the country? Because feeling disconnected means that, they use a certain cliche by saying Nigeria, when negative things happen, they say Nigeria happens to you. And that's really a very sad one. And of course, how much of engagement do you have with our political leaders to ensure that what democracy actually promises is what they actually delivering to the people so that they can feel a sense of belonging to Nigeria, to this Nigerian project?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's exactly why we have to do the National Value Charter. Charter means that an agreement between two sides to an issue. So in the past, it has always been about citizens, but this time around, it's about bringing the leadership also to the table. To say, leadership, we also have a responsibility, and we must keep the Nigerian promise. So in the National Value Charter, we have two components. We have what we call the Nigerian promise, which deals with the issue of leadership, that this country has made certain promises to the citizens. And these promises are spelled out under 7 principles. And the leaders, no matter what level of leadership, must keep these promises on behalf of the country. This is what will motivate the citizens to also keep their own end of the bargain. So the leadership this time around is not removed from the responsibility to keep this nation together. They have a frontline role to play. And so that is the Nigerian promise that we have put in place. We must acknowledge, and that is part of the reason why we do that you cannot legislate patriotism and you cannot enforce it. You have to motivate it. And the major motivation is how leaders, respond to issues, the way the leaders conduct themselves. These are the things that will motivate the citizens. And that's why these 7 principles, are put in place as the Nigerian promise, that every leader at every level must understand and ensure that he abide by that. Leadership also. The definition of leadership in this context, yes, it's political leadership, but that is also one level of leadership. Leadership in this context includes all leaders at all levels, starting from the family unit. The parents must, be responsible leaders at home. The society, the community leaders must be responsible community leaders. The religious leader must be responsible. Even leadership in the newsroom, leadership in the banks, everywhere. You have supervisory role. You must play your part responsibly. And that is what will motivate the followers to also do their part. So we have the 2 components. We have the Nigerian promise. That is for the leadership at all levels to ensure that they keep those promises. And then we have the citizen codes. That's the codes of conduct for citizens. So it's a reciprocal arrangement where the 2 sides play their role to ensure that we have a nation that we are all fully committed to. So the leaders this time around have a frontline responsibility to motivate patriotism through their actions.
Right, this is we want to inform our viewers that the program has been extended to 11 a.m. This is to allow us engage the DG of NOA very critically. So you have the opportunity to do that. Now, DG sir, closely tied to the charter is the National Identity Project. And can you let us in on this project and how it's going to unify the nation?
Okay, thank you very much. There's something very fundamental about identity. Identity is something that we all are very jealous about. All of us, we are carriers of different identities. As an individual, you carry your family identity. So you carry your community identity. You carry your tribal identity. You carry your religious identity. Even if you belong to an association, there are certain identity you carry. So we are carriers of different identities. So for us as Nigerians, there must also be the Nigerian identity that we all carry. And that's what we call shared identity. That we all share, in that the identity, agenda for the country. So for us in Nigeria, we have all these other identities, all these group identities, but we do not have a national identity. If you ask 10 Nigerians today, and you say pick a sheet of paper, define who a Nigerian is, you're going to have 10 different definitions. Because we have not documented and properly defined who a Nigerian is. And citizens of each country are unique. So Nigerians are not Ghanaians. Ghanaians are not Japanese. Japanese are not Chinese, and they are not Americans. So there are certain things about group identity that a commonality of characteristics that you have, that they say, yeah, these are Yoruba people. These are Christians. These are Muslims. These are that. So the group identity is very important. And without the group identity, you cannot make much progress in terms of unity. Because what will bring unity is when all of you become ambassadors of those attributes of that group identity. So in Nigeria, that was lacking. Nigeria never had a proper definition of who we are. So the Nigerian Identity Project is to define who a Nigerian is. And we are not bringing definition from outside world. It's all things are about us. So it's an aggregation of who we are already, who we are already. And this is something that it is very important at this stage. This should have happened decades ago, but it's better late than never. So now we have a definition of who a Nigerian is. And when you define an individual, you're defining him based on certain attributes he has. So that definition comes with attributes. So that in a Nigerian, you must find certain attributes. So if you say this person is a Christian, because you are expecting certain attributes, that's why you say Christian. If you say it's a Muslim, you are expecting certain attributes. If you say it's an Igbo person, it's because you expect certain attributes, around that define him, as an Igbo person, or Hausa, or Fulani, or Nupe, or whatever. Even within Yoruba, you still have some, ethnic groups. You have the Egbas, you have the Jefus. They still have some shared identity at that level that make them to be who they are. So as Nigerians, for us to have this sense of pride and belonging and togetherness, we must also have shared identity, something that is common among Nigerians, that can be seen in the way they outwardly express themselves wherever they go, among themselves or among other people. So that is what the Nigerian Identity Project is all about. So after we have defined who we are, it is now up to us to now live up to those attributes that you find in a Nigerian. And that's why we now say, okay, we must define what the attributes must be. If you are a Nigerian, what are the things that we must find in you? What are the expectations people must have of you? This must be clearly stated. And so that's what led to the National Values Charter. So National Value Charter is actually a compass, to implement that of the Nigerian Identity Project. So the National Value Charter now defines, in details, who you are as a Nigerian. But it doesn't just define who we are as Nigerians. It acknowledges the fact that leadership has a serious role to play, as I have said earlier. And that's why the leadership is given 7 principles that if you are in a position of leader at anywhere, even as a commercial bus driver, inside that bus, you are a leader at that period. There are certain expectations people must have of you. If you are a Nigerian driver, if you are a market leader, if you are a motor parks leader, if wherever you are, you're leading, the GM of a television station, the head of a desk, everywhere, you are the leader. Those things must be found in you as long as you are in Nigeria. It is this commonality of characteristics that will bring unity. You know, when people behave the same way, they share the same attributes, they have common precepts, that's when they begin to see themselves as one. So, but when you do not have anything in common, so why should you be all Nigerians together? So, for being just a so.
All right, DG, I'd like to ask like a follow-up question to that, because earlier on you spoke about a meeting with the NBC about 70% cartoon for children. Now, I would like to ask a question. There is something, the terminology that has been up now is about demarketing Nigeria. Now, you know, the politicians and journalists and how we put out news out there, to what extent can we demarket Nigeria, even to the extent at which we do our job? To what level can we, as journalists, politicians that wants to score a point, political point, demarket Nigeria?
Yes, it's when there is lack of commitment to a cause, to an institution, to a community, to a country. That's what we will have. Because people they are not committed. Nigerians are not committed to Nigeria. So it is easy for you, no matter what will happen, you don't give a damn. They say if you want to hear the worst about Nigeria, talk to Nigeria. You know, and that's not supposed to be the case. So it's not just journalists, it's not just politicians, it's almost everyone. And that's why you see people, just as you said, will say that when they say Nigeria has happened to me, that means negativity. But a lot of positive things are happening. But people will not see it in a situation where they are not motivated, they do not have love for the country, they are not patriotic, although they do see the reason to have patriotic. So these are symptoms. These are symptoms of lack of commitment to the country. And you cannot be committed to a country that has not motivated you to be committed. And that's why we say it is important that we understand that we cannot legislate patriotism. Because the marketing of country is a product of the fact that you are not patriotic. But we also must acknowledge that patriotism in itself is not something you buy in the market. It's something that has to be motivated. You know, so that is the role of the country to ensure people have a reason to love the country. And see, you can build all the beautiful roads, you can build bridges, you can provide education, you can provide health. They don't solve the issue of psychological connection to the country. You see beautiful roads, and you see a Nigerian going to that road to remove the manhole and sell, or the bridge to go and remove the railings to sell, or go to the rail line to remove the track slippers to sell. You know, this is lack of commitment. It does not see it as its property. It doesn't give a damn whatever happens. And it's the same reason a tanker, you know, a fuel tanker will fall and the product will spill, and instead of Nigeria to show empathy, knowing that that product belongs to a Nigerian who has just incurred some, kind of bad investment. Instead of that empathy, they want to take advantage of another, a fellow Nigerian. So these are all symptoms of lack of patriotism. And as we said, patriotism itself is not something that you can enforce. You must motivate it. So we must follow the chain, because these are reactionary issues. From one leading to the other.
DG, you spoke about the need for leaders at all levels to step up their game and be responsible. If you ask 80% of Nigerians, it might be incorrect, if they talk about leadership, they will always point to political leader. The question is, how much of engagement have you had with the state governors, local government chairmen, to make sure that they provide the needed leadership at their levels?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you see, that's why when we conceived this idea, that when we saw the gap, that the main issue in this country is people do not have reasons to be committed, and because we do not have shared identity. It was easy for us as NOA to just step out and begin a campaign, but we understood that that will not work until we bring everybody into it. So the first thing we did 2 years ago was to set up committees cutting across all the segments of this country who make contribution to the document that we call the Nigerian Identity Project. You have the people from the academia, you have the people from the civil society, you have the youths, you have women, you have, all sorts of people, professionals, who came together at different levels for us to have this document that we have put in place. And it is also to ensure that we achieve that objective of bringing the leaders into this, that we took it to Federal Executive Council. We already have the law that empowers us to do value orientation. But we knew that what we wanted to achieve go beyond just what NOA could, muster its strength, to deliver. So we have to go to the Federal Executive Council. And once it is debated there and approved, what it means is that the executive arm of government had, bought into that, and it has become a national policy, a federal government policy, not just one of the programs of NOA. So having become a national, the federal government policy, it was easy for us to engage with all the stakeholders. For instance, the issue of the curriculum that I mentioned, which led to the new subject you have in school now, would not have been made. What made it easy was the fact that the Ministry of Education also had a representative at the Federal Executive Council. So it was part of the decision, that led to that. The NUC that we are working with, the MBC that we are working with, all the stakeholders that we are working with, the fact that the Federal Executive Council has approved this, it has become, brought all of them into it. So it is all of Nigeria's enterprise now. After we did that, we were talking to the Federal Executive Council. We knew that this country is a federal, we run a federalism in this country. So which means the subnationals also must be brought into it. So earlier this year, we took the matter to the Council or the National Council of Information, which comprises of all the commissioners of information of all 36 states. In Kaduna, the annual Council of Information, and all of them were there, and we presented it, and it was ratified. So, which means the states also have taken ownership, of this, the National Values Charter. And so, we have brought all of the country into it, and as we speak, we are in the National Assembly amending certain relevant parts of our act, as an agent, to be able to incorporate all of these new things into our act to make it, to have a legal teeth. So by the time you have done that, you have covered all the ground, and you have brought everybody into it. So the executive, the Federal Executive Council is already part of it. The states are part of it, and it has been ratified at the highest decision-making level in the country.
Okay, part of the narratives, if you ask any Nigerian right now, is largely that we oftentimes will blame the federal government, that's the president, when it comes to our roads, even in local government, at local government levels. And Nigerians would call the president all the time to say that it is because the president is not working, that's why we do not have water in my community. And that has continued. And the president recently came out to say that we should ask the subnationals. I don't know whether you have a message, you've designed a message in that regard where Nigerians would hold leaders at different levels responsible for whatever it is that they are going through within their local government or within the state also.
Okay, thank you very much. Very interesting question. Yes, we know we have 3 tiers of government in this country: the federal, the state, and the local government. And as far as the Constitution is concerned, they all have their responsibility. The one that are exclusive to them, and the one that they all are supposed to work on together. So you have the exclusive list, which is what the federal government alone is responsible for. And then you have what you call the concurrent list, which the federal and the state have brought to play. Then you have the residual list, which is the state and then the local government. So how much have we done? to ensure that we implement, our policies along this line. You are very correct. If there's no rain, it has to be the fact that the federal government is not working. Things that are the responsibility of local government over the years. The real issue is long years of military rule.
Okay.
Through the local government. And since democracy returned, we have not been able to bring local government back to the level where they ought to be. Before now, local government was in charge of taking care of the forest. It was part of their responsibility. And with local government, working very well, the issue of security will not be where it is today, because they can take care of their own environment. And if 774 local government, you have security, architecture from 774 local government. Are you still hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. So if all the 774 are centers where security issues are being handled, of course, we are going to cover every inch of our forest, but that is not working. And that is why the government, this president, took it upon himself to pursue it legally to ensure that local government has some level of autonomy. This is still a work in progress.
Okay.
And I'm sure in a few years' time, we'll go to that level where local government will come back to, be able to handle its basic work, including the issue of even the primary health care. It's supposed to be a local government issue. With the amount of resources going to local government now, there should all these primary health issues should never be a problem to our people anymore. But where are the dispensary centers of where are they now? They are nowhere to be found because you don't have local government. The basic rural roads, we used to have rural roads to make it easy for farmers to get their things to the communities from the farm and make things available for people. That is no longer there. So
okay.
The same for states. States also are not taking their responsibility the way they ought to do it. But the important thing that relates to NOA is to educate Nigerians on where to direct their questions so that they understand who is in charge of what. And we are doing that. Don't also forget that NOA is though a federal government agency, by its mandate is working with all the 3 tiers of government. So that's why we have offices in all the local government, working with the local government to ensure that whatever activities they are doing, we educate the citizens or the indigents of the local government, on what they are doing. We also have the state offices where everything that the state governments are doing, we communicate that to the people in the state. So we operate also a 3-tier level of activities, in NOA.
Okay.
So we are doing our best to educate Nigerians, but the educating Nigerians is one thing, but for the local government to be empowered to actually deliver on these issues is another thing entirely. And that's why I said, as the government started with the Supreme Court judgment on financial autonomy for the local government. And gradually, we are going to see improvement over the years when local government becomes stronger.
All right, there were 2 concepts created in the past to solve the problem of unity, prevent domination by a few regions or groups, and of course promote inclusion, balance, and a sense of belonging. That's federal character and quota system. You've been talking about unity, and of course when you talk about unity, unity requires fairness, progress requires competence. Some said these concepts have actually expired. Some said it is the implementation that is the problem. Nigerians no longer need that quota. Imagine you have a child, scoring 200 in JAM in the Southwest, and of course some scoring 80 from another region, and along the line, the one with 80 got admitted into university. So how exactly do you see this concept that were developed in the past to solve certain problems? Are they still relevant? And if they are still relevant, can we do a review of it and do something better to it than how it is being implemented?
Okay. I think the people who came up with what we call federal character policy, we should acknowledge that they know what they are doing. The country, if we go back to history, education actually got to part of the north, even before it got to part of the south. And when we're talking of education, I'm not talking of Western education. Literacy level in the north was higher before the colonialists came, and they studied Arabic. And many people in the north were writing what they call Ajami. Ajami is using an Arabic letter to write Hausa words. The same way we use English letter, to write Yoruba or Igbo. Those are the letters we use, the alphabetical letters. So the literacy was there. But when colonialists came and the Western education became the choice, it made them to become illiterate. Even though they are literate, they could write, they could read, but in a language that is not official any longer in Nigeria. So that put them in a disadvantaged situation. We must go back to what happened. And so when you now bring a different form of education using different language from people who have centuries of learning, they produce poets, they produce authors, they've written books using a different language. Then you brought a new language and you say it's not the official. Then the one they know is no longer useful. Then you must give them that opportunity to come up. But how long should that take? That is the question I think you should be addressing.
Yeah.
That at this stage, shouldn't we have covered the ground? Is it the fault of the federal government that does not ensure that they quickly recover? Or is it the fault of the state or their leaders or whatever? So, but there was a reason for it. And till today, if you flip the coin today and you say, okay, let's adopt Arabic letter instead of English letter, then the South will become illiterate. Then the North will become literate. And then if we are going to write exam in Arabic now, then they will need to score higher marks. Then the South that is disadvantaged will be given consideration so that they could come in with lower marks because of that situation. So that as a country to ensure that the gap levels up. I remember that in mid-80s or late 80s, there was what we call nomadic education, where education was taken to the nomads to ensure that they quickly catch up. Many of the nomads can write, they can read, but not in English. And so we call them illiterate because they cannot speak English and they cannot write in English. But they are very illiterate in another language. Between the core with nomadic education to ensure that they are also brought into it. So federal character has its role to play, but I also disagree that it should become something that we take undue advantage of and it remains forever. It's supposed to be a stopgap policy to ensure that we are able to balance things up in a way that every Nigerian does not, feels that it is on the same pedestal. Nobody feels disadvantaged in the process. So I think we need to come to sit down at the round table and decide when are we going to put this to an end. It cannot continue forever.
Digisa, NOA launched a campaign some time ago about Naira abuse, about respect for national symbol, and about security and anti-corruption. What has been the feedback ever since the launch of these campaigns?
Yeah, we not first and foremost acknowledge the role other agencies who are also concerned about this have played, but particularly the EFCC. Without the EFCC, it would have been difficult for us. But because EFCC have been frontal about it makes it easy for us. Because NOA we don't have prosecutorial powers. We don't have enforcement powers. Our own is moral suasion. It's not to persuade Nigerians. But with NOA coming in, NOA has the enforcement power, they have the prosecutorial power, and when we team up, we make the job easy. And we had an event organized by EFCC on this issue of Naira abuse, and we played a role in it in Lagos some months back. And we brought stakeholders, including musicians, because without musicians, we cannot talk of Naira abuse at the level of spraying of money. And many of them are actually happy, funny. They were happy with the new policy that makes people to put money, decently, in the basket or in the way that the exchange is commensurate with what we expect of Nigerians who respect their currency. They acknowledge they say it's even working better for them. So we see that in most of the videos we see of recent at events, people are taking very good note of that policy. But it's not just about spraying of money. It is happening in the market. It is happening in the commercial vehicles. Where conductors squeeze money, in a way that it's not befitting. Then in the market where market men and women do not have respect, for the way they treat money, or even in the banks where some tellers or bank workers think you can use Naira to do your calculations and then they begin to write on it, or accountants in the cashier offices. So these are all the areas where we are touching, and we think people are responding. We show evidence that people are responding very well to it. But for human beings, we don't say because we have told them once, you must continue to reiterate it, otherwise they will fall back into default.
Right. You were appointed in 2023 by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and 2023 was not a good year for Nigeria in terms of economy. That was the year subsidy officially left, and that was the year the dollar Naira was floated. How did you manage? Because this is one thing. If the economy is not right, you can't enforce or influence patriotism. How did you manage that period, and how were you able to cope as the DG of NOA to influence people to be patriotic?
Yes, 2023, particularly 2024, first half of 2024 was quite tough. But we saw it coming. We knew that would be those consequences, for the far-reaching economic reform policies that the government took. As necessary as they were, they will come with pace. So the first thing was to be truthful. And we were able to navigate successfully because the president was truthful to Nigerians. He told them from the beginning that this thing will bring pace, but the pace are going to be temporary. So because there are startup makers, the Nigerians are aware, even their president has told them that please, you have to bear with me. These things are very important for what we want to achieve, and it will bring pace, but the pace will be temporary. So we don't have that message that to reiterate and reinforce, that particular message to say yes, you may be feeling pain now, but this is going to be for a short while, and we are also able to begin to show progress and this great hope, because hope is important for a human being. We also create a sense of hope for him. The human nature, man is created with a lot of endurance spirit, spirit of endurance. So, but that endurance sustains itself on hope. So, if you are not able to create hope, it will be difficult for you to carry him along. So, we are able to show evidence of progress being made, on a continuous basis, and people begin to say, okay, perhaps if we team up, if we cooperate, if we collaborate, we may succeed together. That's how we're able to navigate our period. Even though we knew also that some enemies of the country, some people who are also patriotic, try to take advantage and create some other narrative, to amplify the negativity. But somehow we were able to, drive through the turbulence, by creating hope.
All right. Recently, NOA, under your watch, engaged children in primary schools, and of course, I think you said that in the initial, in your initial, contributions. What exactly are you driving out to engage the primary school children, and how can that, in the real sense of it, change the narrative that we have about Nigeria?
I think that's the earlier part of
your agency engaged the primary school pupils, recently, and of course you must have a reason for doing that. What are the reasons?
Yeah.
And of course, where are you driving to?
Yeah. The people state that we visit the schools to engage with them. Yeah, we understand that you must cut them down. You must begin to instill these values from when they are young, from when they are going through their formative stages in life. That is when they form character. So it is very important that we engage with them at that level, and that's what led to the introduction of these compulsory subjects that we say we have introduced. That's what also has led to the policy of nationalization of cartoon content, because children from age 2 to age 16 thereabout are committing 4 to 5 hours daily to watching cartoons. And so cartoons is one of the areas where they form character. You see a child of 3, 4 years of age already exhibiting some mannerisms, and you wonder where that came from. Of course, if you pay attention to the kind of cartoon he is watching, then you will be able to trace to the character he's trying to imitate. Even in accent, you begin to see accents that are completely strange to the country. If you follow him to the cartoon, you will see he has picked a particular character that is, even including vocabulary, we have to look at Nigeria is where I'm coming from. And that is part of the reason why we said no. Our cartoons must be about us. We have heroes, and because of them, we have created, 2 superheroes. One we call Captain Excellence. That is on TV, but we are doing a lot of things at the background that will come to the fore very soon, and Nigerians will see it. To replace, face out this foreign cartoon. In the last 3 decades, we have been producing foreigners in our country. We have been raising foreigners. Most of these are foreigners in their way of thinking. They're not exposed to the values, of the country. And the parents pay attention to the content of this foreign cartoon. They will be shocked at what they are exposing their children to. And also these kids now see a bear and a dog kissing, a bear and a dog kissing. They see the way they relate to their parents, which is not the way we relate to our parents here. They see the way they relate among themselves. We are a collectivistic society. We operate by group identity. We are not America, we are not Europeans. Those countries are individualistic societies where people grow as individuals. Here we grow as collectives. We grow as, a body, a group, so we have shared identity. So that they are telling them to be individualistic, right from that word go. And so if we continue like this, I can say clearly that in about 70, 80, 90 years, you will have, what they call it, is it adulthood, where they go and dump their parents when they grow old. Got up to the bottom they are being brought up with. Instead of taking care, here we take pride in taking care of our aged ones. But they were raising children who will go and drop their aged ones in certain homes.
But part of the blames are largely put on the doorsteps of the political elite, not really political elite, like the elites of the country now, basically because they are the ones that step outside the country, they are the ones that send their children abroad, they are the ones that do most of these things, and of course in the process, they get the children, accustomed to a particular culture, a new culture that is not the one ones that they actually, you look at how we build our houses now, every house is gated. They talk about security, but of course they also look at other factors responsible for that. What we copy from abroad when we go there, or what we see them do in abroad, is what we largely bring into the country. Is that also not going to affect? Are we going to just look at the children? What about the adults, that actually put most of these things at the doorstep of children as well?
Yes, that's why, I will still go back to the personal value chapter. That's why we say leadership goes beyond just political leadership. Even the parents must be responsible. You must know what you are doing with your children. Right from, okay, so you go abroad, but we are saying that people in their bedrooms are bringing content that should not be seen by their own children, to the children. So people who go, if you go abroad at the age of 16, 17, you are already fully formed. So you can cope with what you see there. And you already have developed, so if you come back, if you have a country that is operating by values, when you come back to become a misfit, because you are not going to have many people behaving like you, and then you become like a social defiant, within your own society. So, but the important thing is, let's take care of our children, let's be sure of what they are learning, and let's be sure. So instead of Spider-Man, let's have our own superheroes. Instead of Iron Man, let's have our own superheroes. Instead of those things that they are teaching them that are not, in line with our own ways of life, let's teach them about our own ways of life.
Okay.
We are all proud today about what our parents did to us. Even when we were small, things that we were complaining about, now we realize that if not for those things, we may have missed our ways. So it's because there is still certain values in us. So why are we going to abandon our children and expose them to the world? And we know what the world has become today.
You spoke about the role of parents, which is sacrosanct in any developed nation. How we raise our children is really critical. And the security challenges we have in the country, you can also tell that most of these actually are results of bad parenting. There are parents that would have children and they cannot actually be responsible for their children, and the role of religion as well. We talked about the North, for instance. It's not just the North now. In the South, we still have parents, people that cannot actually they cannot take care of themselves, but they give birth to children that they cannot also take care of, and we see them on the streets. You see them doing, going into different crimes, and of course we see that on a large scale. And when the terrorists come into the country, they use those children as what they are using them for now. We also recall the message of our sage, that's Issa-Onilu, saying that the children that we refuse to take care of, and which was why they said education helped the Southwest, or maybe the South. That's the Western education now, which is one of the reasons we have, children of the poor, getting somewhere now. So what message are you taking to parents and religious leaders that continue to talk about, especially when they talk about polygamy in the North, for instance, the children that don't have their parents around them? We have everyday reports saying terrorists are being killed, the bandits are being killed, largely because their parents have been detached from them. So they can't even tell that it is my child that is being killed and all of that. So what message do you have in terms of security, and the message you take to the religious leaders, that it's not just about pushing polygamy, it's about being responsible at the end of the day, because that's what the Quran says, largely.
Yeah, thank you very much. You see, I think if you get to the level where it is criminal to allow your child, to be exposed to the vagaries, of the society, children moving about on Monday morning, children hawking things on the streets at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, when their peers are in school, and no society should tolerate that. And it starts with the parents, as you said, but it also goes beyond the parents. So parents are actually powerless, they are helpless they do not have the means to sustain the children's education. And that's why we go back to the issue of having strong top tier of government, which is local government. Primary education is the responsibility of the local government. But the local government is not strong. If we do not have a strong local government system, there's no way they can also be able to provide primary education, just as mentioned the primary health care. The other side, primary education is also primarily the job of the local government. So if it is done at that level, every child has a right to be given opportunities. So the states and the parents must play that role to ensure that no child is exposed, to the whatever the world has to offer him or her. In our own way, within our own mandate, we just recently created a new department that we call the Department of Abuse, Rights and Narcotics. So part of the job of this department is to ensure that nobody is abused or all forms of abuse, and particularly the children, must not be abused, because by not giving them training, it's also an abuse, by giving them to live their life the way they want. Because they are also going to become dangerous to society, as we have seen now. This is the primary source of recruitment for people who want to carry out nefarious activities. Because there are millions in this country. We see them everywhere. There are not. The Nigerian system, as we are going to a stage where we must, interrogate that system. The original intention of Nigeria was not to allow children to roam around the street. They are supposed to be students. So what kind of policy are we having in place? The same thing applies when you go to Lagos to see children who have left homes at the age of 8, 9, 10, and they are living under the bridges. They are in every community, involved in drugs, involved in other nefarious activities. So the state has a responsibility. When I say the state, I mean the government has a responsibility, and the parents also. So it's a joint, policy that must be put in place, so that parents is able to play his own role, and the government is able to play his own role.
Religious leaders.
The local government is fundamental to it.
Religious leaders.
I hear that.
The religious leaders now reinforcing certain narratives.
The religious leaders in the country today, we have a lot of work to do in that sphere. I would say, without mixing words, that the two popular religions, the majority of the clerics, they have also missed their way. Because they are focusing on things that are not as important. They are also now trading in competition, getting involved in politics. They have abandoned their primary role of being the moral compass, of the society, guiding the children, guiding the adults, guiding everybody, providing them, the basic, ethical, issues that they need to address. That's what they are focusing on. So they also must come back to their primary responsibility of guiding the society, of guiding the citizens, and especially ensuring that the children are protected. The two major religions have a very important place for the children, in terms of their upbringing. So our religious leaders also have a role to play. We work with them as well, within the limit of our own capacity also in terms of the resources available. We work with the religious leaders. But if you go on the social media or on radio, what we hear from them today are more mundane than core issues of raising a society that we all can be proud of.
All right, thank you so much, Malam Lanre Issa-Onilu. Thank you for joining us, the Director General of National Orientation Agency. Our time is up. We have to round off. But your comments, contribution, and education on New Dawn this morning has been of immense pleasure to us. Thank you so much for being there, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, and thank you, our viewers, today for joining us since 8 o'clock. It's almost 11 a.m. and we have to round off. Many thanks to you. Tomorrow is the Yoruba version, and on Wednesday, New Dawn will be back to your viewing pleasure. Simeon.
All right, thank you so much. And of course, keep watching the People Study. Bye for now.